All right, Geometry 10, I just wanted to cut a video this morning and give you some guidance if you have questions about how to begin the second semester summary assignment. So again, a couple of reminders. It's worth 20 points and it goes in as a quiz grade. So if you've been struggling a little bit with your quiz scores or you're looking for a final push to kind of increase your grade here at the end, really important that you try and put something together with this assignment. Secondly, it's going to call on some of the things that you've done earlier in the year, so you may go back over your notes if you've held on to those. You can do some Googling around for formulas, things like that. Obviously, I couldn't keep you from looking stuff up online if I wanted to, and I don't want to. Use the resources that you have at hand to be able to figure out what to do. And then keep in mind is that I'm asking you to record your work on paper, to be able to show your work, and then upload that into the document. So how is this all going to begin? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is when you get asked to open this up, it's going to ask if you want to make a copy, right? And so when you go and you say, yes, make a copy, it's going to allow you to rename this. So what I want you to do is go ahead and put in your first name and your last name, and then something like, semester summary assignment. Right? And then you're going to click OK. So now you've got a brand new copy of the document that you're going to be able to use to record your information. And you'll have all the directions and everything that you're being asked to do. They're all in one piece. So if you look up in here where the name is, after you've renamed your copy, it should be right up in there. So now name, student, and today's date, undo. And whatever date it is that you do this on, so 5/18 of 20. And so everything in this assignment, most of it is going to work around the idea of rectangles, right? So we've learned a lot of different ways to solve rectangle problems. So when there were right angle triangles, we had the Pythagorean theorem. We knew we could use trigonometry to find unknown sides or unknown angle measures. With similar triangles, we know that they have the same angles and that their side lengths are in proportion. So you're going to be able to use all of that you've learned previously about triangles to complete this work. And then there's also some calculations about some of the formulas you've learned about 3D figures. So under materials needed, I said that you need this document, you would need a partner. And the big reason for that is you're measuring a shadow, okay? And it's virtually impossible to measure your own shadow. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, but you'll save yourself so much stress and give yourself a much better chance of having success with the math if you have somebody help you out with this. So that could be a classmate, a friend, a family member, or maybe a neighbor that's willing to help you out. If we're talking about shadows, you need a sunny day. And if you look outside your window as I'm recording this on Monday afternoon, it is not sunny. And so you're unlikely to have a shadow. If you got a little ahead of the game and you started working this over the weekend, like Saturday was fabulous, then maybe you caught some sunshine. If not, you may have to wait to get these measurements until a little bit later this week. So be it. It's only going to take you an hour or so to knock out this assignment, but don't wait until Friday. Okay. If you have a measuring device, a measuring tape or a yardstick or even a ruler, that's going to help. Worst case scenario, you probably have a pretty good idea of how tall you are, right? And if you're thinking about estimating, if you have a sidewalk in front of your house, not everybody does, but some of us do, those squares on the sidewalk typically the lines are about 4 feet apart, right? So if that may help you estimate. Absolute worst case scenario, right? So what needs to have happen? So it says measure how tall you are in inches. And we're going to indicate that here in this box. So let's think a little bit about what we're talking about there. If we're talking about in inches, and let's say you're 6 feet tall. Well, we don't want to enter 6 feet, we want inches. How do I get from feet to inches? Well, 1 foot equals 12 inches, right? So you could think of it as 1 over 12 if we're using a scale, right? So 6 feet tall times 12, 6 times 12, that's 72 inches. Awesome. What if you're 5 feet 8 inches. Well, how do you do that? Well, you've got the 8 here, right? Now you can do your 5 times 12, that's 60, plus your 8 will give you 68 inches. So whatever your measurement is in feet, take that, multiply by 12, and then add the inches, and you're going to be good to go on that. Right? So once you get that measurement, let's go ahead and type that in here. That's 72 inches, or whatever yours happens to be. And then you go out and measure your shadow, right? Well, what's happening with that? You may vaguely remember from previous math classes, Algebra 1, this definitely was covered in Algebra 1. You got something like this, okay? So here's a tree. Here's you, right? So the sun shines on both of you at the same angle, right? And so what ends up happening is you've got a triangle made up by you and the ground and the sun's ray, and a triangle made by, let's say, the tree or the lamppost or whatever, and the sun's rays. So you have two what are known as similar triangles. Right? So the height of the tree, and here's the tree shadow. Okay? So they're both right angles, and if the sun is hitting both of you at the same angle, these two angles are congruent, right? So if you have two angles that are the same measure on two different triangles, both triangles, their angles add up to 180. That means these are similar triangles. What do we know about similar triangles? Their corresponding angles are congruent, but then the corresponding sides are in proportion. Right? So these two are similar triangles. Well, what does that mean? That means if we know your height and your shadow and the length of the tree shadow, we can use that to set up a proportion and solve for the tree height. So you go and you measure that. A couple things to keep in mind. The sun is at its highest point directly overhead at 1 p.m. Okay, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when you're going to have the shortest shadow. That may be to your benefit if you don't have, a super long measuring tape, if you're trying to use a yardstick or a ruler. And especially if you're talking about a taller tree, its shadow is going to be shorter. Okay, depending on where you're located, if you're trying to get a tree in the backyard or it's close to your house, you might not be able to get the whole shadow, right? So you may have to kind of keep an eye on where the shadows fall before you go out and try and measure. Second thing, you need to measure your shadow and the tree shadow at the same time, right? That's super important, right? If you take different time of day measurements of your shadow and the tree shadow, none of this is going to work, okay? And then if you're looking for direction, the shadow is going to be longer early in the morning and later in the evening going in opposite directions. So shortest shadow at 1 o'clock, you were going to have a longer shadow at say like 8 or 9 in the morning and a longer shadow at like 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon. And if you've ever been out like, in the backyard and trying to get some sun or stay in shadow from sun, you know that the shadows fall different ways. So kind of make that part of your plan as you decide how to do the work. So let's just say on the off chance that you measure your shadow and this is kind of mid-afternoon and it turns out to be, let's say, 3 feet long. And let's say you measure yourself and you're 6 feet tall, just for ease of use here. Okay, and you measure the tree shadow and it's 15 feet. Okay, so you record those on your paper and then you go on over to your paper. I'm sorry, you come on over to 36 inches for your shadow, right? And you record these things. So one of the things it asks you is, what if you took a length of wire from the top of your head to the end of your shadow? Well, what part of a triangle is this? Okay. Here's you, here's your shadow, if there was a wire that went from your top of your head to the tip of your shadow, what part of the triangle is that? It's a hypotenuse, right? And so you should be able to use that information to answer this question, number one. Now that you have some lengths of all three sides of the triangle, you can use what you know about trigonometry to determine angle of elevation, angle of depression. So here's where you go ahead and enter in your tree shadow information. So 15 times 12, 150, 10 times 100, 10 times 15, 150, 2 times 15, 180 inches. Okay? And now you're using what you know about similar triangles to write a proportion to solve for x, whatever the tall object is. And remember how this goes. If you want to keep, the shadow lengths together on one side and the heights of the objects on one side, that's cool. If you want to keep your height and your shadow, tree height and tree shadow, however you set that up, just organize that together, and then you can do the math on that. And that'll be able to get you to an answer. Proportion, include that on your page here. Then you can do the math to determine the height of the tall object in inches, because you're doing all this work in inches. Super careful about that. And convert it over into feet, which we talked a little bit earlier about going from feet to inches. Now we're going back. And then the last one involves what you know about some formulas, 3D objects. And again, if you need to go and look up those formulas, that'll be fine. All your work on paper, organize it so I don't have to hunt for your work. Remember, if it makes me hard to find and I can't find your answers, I can't give you points for it, right? So you want the points, show me your work. You just insert that here in the doc, right? So you know how to do that. You go up to your file menu, insert, image, and then, if you've got it in your drive or you saved it in your photos or whatever, upload from computer, probably easiest, right? Email it to yourself, and then you can download it to your computer, upload that right in there. Then what happens? You go File, you go Download as a PDF. Okay? Now it's going to be sitting in your documents. Okay? Then when you go to submit this, you would go back into your assignment, into your module, second semester summary assignment. Put this piece into a Google Doc also, so there's where your file would go. Click submit. You're good to go. Once you've submitted it, you're done with Geometry 10 and have an awesome, awesome summer. I hope this video helped you all a little bit. We'll still keep office hours on Wednesday and again Friday for you last minute people. If you drop me an email on Tuesday or Thursday, I'm not going to ignore it. Just might not get quite a quick response as you would ordinarily. All right, so good luck with the summary assignment. I hope to see some great math from all of you.